All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Palantir Weekly. We are here today, episode number 1114 or 114, to discuss everything in the world of Palantir. I'm here with Vince and Arnie. We might have some people join us a little bit later, but right now it's just us. How are you guys doing?
Okay. My portfolio is Rocket Lab and Palantir, and both have been dipping lately. So haven't lost any conviction, but it definitely feels nicer when the stocks are going up. This I will admit to.
Arnie, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. And I'm realizing that more and more, the more the business, I would say mainly in the case of Palantir, but that is also true for Robinhood and Tesla. Once you see that the business is doing well, how you want them to do, then you realize how the stock movements become less relevant. It is when you have doubts on the company that you're not really sure. Well, are they doing the right things so that in 1 year, 10 years, whatever, they become stronger? But once you have that feeling, okay, who cares of the stock price? Like the business is performing, is having momentum. I'm fine. Okay, whatever. If you think of it, we already lost like 20% from the peak of 1 month ago. 20% is a lot. That's like a 2x of the average of the S&P 500. Also compared with the Palantir average drawdown, like that is already like a dip.
Yeah, I agree. And we're seeing a little bit of a dip today. CPI data was not the best. PPI data was not the best. Yesterday, we thought we had avoided it. And then today, some geopolitical stuff we'll talk about in terms of the implications for Palantir. But that kind of triggered the market to think, hey, maybe we should take some profits, given the market's sitting on a lot of profits based on Q1.
I think I'm going to be buying money that I'm willing to lose call options on Palantir before earnings, because I think behind the scenes, as Arnie said, I think the company is doing insanely well. And hopefully we get a pop after earnings. But it's with money that I'm willing to lose. It's a casino.
Yeah, almost like a lotto ticket, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start off with the first news of the day. This news that I thought was very, very interesting, and some really good insight into the history of Palantir. So Shyam Sankar put out this article this week called "The Primacy of Winning," and the whole concept, it's a pretty long article, but the whole concept is how Palantir's culture works and the concept between missionaries versus mercenaries. So one really interesting thing here is that there was at one point an engineer that wanted $500,000 in cash in 2004 to work for the company, which in today's dollars is 10 million bucks. They didn't have the money, so they gave him stock, SBC, and that employee left, right? They weren't going to work for the equity. And so at that moment, they realized we were going to be a cult. It was going to be painful to join. So applicants needed to want to be on board badly. They had a very unique business model. None of it was proven. So the only way they could get this thing up and running is if people that joined were missionaries versus mercenaries. And that's why there was so much excessive stock-based compensation when they went public in 2020 via DPO. So thoughts on the article? What did you guys think? Even the concept of this culture that Shyam describes as just of winning. I think that's a badass culture to be investing in. How did you feel about this article by Shyam?
I would say right article at the right time. If you publish something like that, and that was not an interview that was asked, this is like Shyam affirmatively say, we have a culture to win. Given the moment, I love to see all this background, and that is the background that matters. This is the kind of article that a Wall Street analyst will never, ever spend half an hour to read. But if we read through the lines and actually all the lines of what he shares, we can have these very profound lines that makes you understand the culture. And once you understand the culture, you understand also the decisions, and you understand if the company actually has a reasoning behind what they do, and how that could become the source of success. For instance, this cultish element that is often criticized from outside is actually why Palantir is still around after 20 years. And after 20 years, despite it was there in the shadow, it is actually very strong. And Karpa mentioned it many times. It's like having this cultish element in your company once you start becoming bigger is actually very difficult. Look at how more bureaucratic these companies become, like Meta, Google, but even in China, when Alibaba started becoming too big, then it started becoming a mess to manage. So if you can preserve that culture, you create that feedback loop, as Antonio always mentioned, like that feedback loop of creating optimization. And Palantir is a machine to optimize decision making for win.
I agree. I agree that they're a machine for optimizing decision makings that help you win. And the idea that they only cared about engineers at that time that would help you do that was really bullish. I mean, now it gives you perspective on in 2020 why they did a DPO, because they had engineers for almost 15 years that were waiting, not getting paid the amount of money they probably should have getting paid. And they got exit liquidity once they went public, right? Which they probably deserved. Vince, your thoughts on Shyam's argument about the culture of winning?
I'll be honest, I missed this article, so I have to read it. I don't know how. So yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think overall it was a good article. For anyone who wants to read it, I think it's worth reading. There's one other part of the article that I thought was really important. That was kind of fun to see. So this part right here, let me share this. In 2006, Alex Karp asked me if I knew why French restaurants were so good. I had no idea. He told me that a French restaurant, the wait staff is actually part of the kitchen staff. They intimately understand the food, the methodology, and the technique. They are not merely carrying the food from the kitchen to the table, but are instead part of a subtle and complex system that affects kitchen operations. He wanted me to build that for engineering. So it's kind of funny. In 2006, Karp was being all philosophical with him about like French restaurants, and that's how we got Shyam to join as CTO.
I can imagine this happening while being at a restaurant, and I can imagine Karp with a glass of wine. Hey, Shyam.
Yeah.
Do you know why? Well, de facto, you have to understand.
No, literally. That's literally like de facto the way the French restaurant operates. That's hilarious. Okay. Let's do a quick reaction to this, and then I want to move to Arnie getting quote tweeted by the CTO. This guy likes Palantir.
Is on Palantir Technologies.
Look, I think they have
PLTR.
unbelievable technology, and I think that they work closely with the government. As far as I'm concerned, $22 goes to $28. Make a move and buy some.
Is on
I love how confident he is to just like tell people to buy. Like, you know, we have to be so scared. We don't tell people buy or sell. We don't want to get sued by anyone. Like, he's just like, yep, buy it, sell it, whatever. CNBC has all the liability. I don't care.
Not financial advice.
Not financial advice. Well, the thing is, he's not allowed to trade stocks. None of the CNBC guys are. So I guess they don't feel the same.
How does he have his own fund then?
How does he have his own fund?
Yeah,
No.
Fund.
Oh, fund. Well, he has an investor group. Like, it's like a Discord, but on CNBC. But he can't actually buy. Like him, Andrew Ross Sorkin, Becky, they can't actually buy stocks.
Oh my God, that alone would make me not want to work for CNBC.
Yeah. I mean, they get paid a good amount of money. They probably make more than 99% of people make in the stock market, but still, like the fun is in buying and selling, right?
Well,
And the money is
that almost all professionals that we see can't actually buy stuff on their own.
Yeah.
Most companies, for instance, where I worked, like the first week, they make you sign, I commit not to trade, blah, 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 blah. Then in the end, in most companies, there is a way to make it, but you have to disclose everything. You could have a potential mess because let's say you make too much profit, then it could be suspect of, oh, you had that kind of information and so on. So even in the places where you can actually buy something, you end up not doing that, and you end up just buying some ETFs.
Right. What do you think about him being bullish on Palantir at $28?
I'm confused.
Look, guys, I know everyone likes to hate on Kramer, but he has made some good calls. For example, he was a Tesla bear, which we know was a bad call. And then just before the huge run up, I remember when he was on TV and he's like, I'm changing my mind. Tesla is a go, you know, and he did catch the 10x run up. So he's not all wrong. And I think that Palantir is doing so good that it can offset this bearish Jim Cramer indicator. Maybe he's right this time.
Yeah, every time he's been bullish on Palantir, we've still done well, you know?
Yeah.
Ironically. Also, people are saying this is bearish, $28. So technically it's bullish because if he's bearish, we're only $28.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And isn't it funny that how you know, working with the government, it was like a bearish argument, and then now in this, like, even I think he said that, yeah, they're like a government consultant. I think he said that it's like makes them a slow grower, and now it's like, yeah, they work with the government, it's a buy.
Yeah.
No, this is seriously one of those things that make me mad of the financial theory, all those empirical things that you always also see on TV. That, for instance, if you talk with asset managers in Italy, the fact of working with the government is actually considered a plus. It's like, oh, the Italian government, even if it is the Italian government, so it's not as high in reputation as the US one, is, the Italian government, like, they can pay you very late, but they pay you, so that reserves a premium that's actually good. And then you have in the US, the US government, that stuff that doesn't grow, that's nah. And then you actually have these multi-giant billion companies backed on the government, actually receiving risk-free money, like Lockheed Martin with the cost plus structure. And you see how perception changes, and that's also true. Like, for instance, just to give another narrative, have you noticed oil versus stock prices? There are periods where stock are going up because oil goes down, that boosts the economy, and okay, everyone's happy. And then you have periods where stock go down because oil goes down. And it's like, wait, I'm confused now.
Right. No, 100%. I agree. A lot of this stuff follows the narrative and follows the trend. And as we can see, sentiment around a company can change.
My favorite one is the stock market is falling because the Fed is going to raise interest rates. And then like that was the narrative in 2022, 2023. And now it's like, don't wait for the interest rate raise because the stock market is usually falling when the Fed does interest.
It's crazy, dude. It's this fucking game we all play back and forth of analyzing all this dumb shit going on, but it's fun. We all like analyzing it. You know?
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to this. Arnie and I joined a webinar that Palantir had. It's their first of many, what it looks like, AIP Now webinars. And in this webinar, Arnie found a new feature, which was called Workflow Builder. And Shyam tweeted him, or quote tweeted him today, to kind of make the product announcement legit around Workflow Builder. So, Arnie, for those that don't know what this is, including myself, I still don't fully understand this new feature in AIP. What is it, and why do you think Shyam is super excited about this?
Well, I made the post exactly for the reason that I noticed, this is something new. I can't say I fully grasp what I'm seeing, yet it seems one of those features that are powerful, like those things that help you have a lot of control on what you're building and actually increase the speed of what you are building. We have to think of Palantir as essentially an application layer that helps you build other applications. And the more this application helps you be faster, the more valuable it becomes. And then we received these great comments from Shyam, and then also from Chad, and also from Peter. Peter, I don't know how it's is pronounced, that help us understand actually what is that. So for instance, here you show Shyam saying, our vision is that workflow builder, so this new feature, will be the kinetics layers, the kinetic layer of the ontology, what Monocle is to data integration layer. So Monocle is an application that helps you visualize essentially the ontology and to actually deploy the ontology. And here the kinetics layer is what determines the movement of the objects. And he says a pipeline builder, so the product that we mentioned previously, gets you to the ontology. So pipeline builder is that feature that once you have the data in a mess, you can start making order of that mess, creating a pipeline that also transforms the data. That's my understanding of pipeline builder. And then you have this workflow builder. So it's like once you have the ontology, you can unleash the power of the ontology by creating very easily workflows, meaning doing something. So once you have the understanding, the semantic, call it the ontology layer that makes you understand what you are actually dealing with, then you need to talk about the movements. Okay, if you can visualize and craft a sequence of actions that give you movements, you are dealing with kinetics, so how things move.
Right.
And since in this picture that is on the website of Palantir, they say, okay, the ontology is essentially backed by a semantic, what things are. You have the kinetics, so how things move. Once you have this understanding of what you are, how, like what you're dealing with, how these things move together, then it's all about the dynamic. So how you perform decisions, and this decision feed a learning and creating this loop. Now, if we want to go like more on the, okay, what is actually this stuff, I think we can go to these comments from Chad.
Yeah, and it does seem like they are hyper emphasizing the concept of having an ontology in order to make LLMs a lot more meaningful as well.
So just to have for those who can see this, even if the screen is not very good in terms of resolution, here we see this panel, which seems like an ontology of the workflow,
right,
with the different components, and we can see here on the top the index of these on let's call it ontology of the workflow. You have organizations data, tribal knowledge, approval actions, AI agent capabilities, AI action capability, agent action capabilities. And essentially in the demo, once they click some components, they visualize how that affect also the application. So it's like once you modify something in the ontology of the workflow layer, you see almost immediately also how that affects what the users see. So it's like you operate on the back while also seeing how that affects also in the front. And Chad commented, this is an awesome new tool called Workflow Builder. The idea is that you can X-ray style behind how an app workflow is actually operating and the data, logic, and action, and then you can actually just build and extend from there. So essentially, it's a tool to facilitate the building of workflow, where a workflow is essentially a task that help you solve a problem, a use case.
right.
Unparalleled transparency, the unwalled garden. And then there is this very powerful comment from Peter. I think of it as like looking under the hood of the car. There's a sleek exterior, okay, cool, but sometimes it's nice to check out the engine too. So once you have this easy way to look how the engine is built, how that perform, and you can easily create actions like you have control on this. You can also easily build. So it's like to have a sense is once you start making a project, you also visualize it real time, how that object is, and you can modify it so that you all immediately have a feedback of how that works.
Right? No, it's really. Oh, go ahead, Vince.
No, I was just going to say that it seems like they're doing this because they are. I mean, I don't fully yet understand what AIP now is. It seems to be like their next phase of innovating on their sales. It's something that we never. They have always been bad at sales, and then they actually innovated on sales, and now it seems like they're disrupting their own sales thing, which is fantastic from a company that is 20 years old and they're still innovating at this pace. And I think what they're doing is, instead of sending forward deploy engineers and setting up these different things in your company, they're selling like packaged-ish models. You know, they say that this is like the customer engine module, and then if you basically get, like, that's why they're saying that you need to look under the hood, because when you get it, you need to adjust it to your company, right? And then you need to be able to look into, like, okay, what is this workflow? And, you know, the customer goes from here to the manager. Yeah, but in our company, it doesn't go to the manager. So delete that, and instead it should go here. So I think that this is why they're developing tools on how to mess with their own system. But when I was on the AIP Now webinar, it was very, very technical, and I had a very hard time to follow it. I don't know about you guys.
No, you're right. Go ahead.
No, and I more and more see what CodeStrap was saying, that you know, like this AIP Now and Foundry they're insanely powerful tools, but you need people to implement them. And then if there is a lot of developers out there who know how to use it, that are easily accessible, and they can, you know, tailor make it to your company, I think that is needed, because us average folk, like, it seems like none of us are like hyper technical. Like, it's sort of over our head. Like, at least we understand that this is revolutionary, magical, you know, like it saves a lot of cost, but yeah, it's a bit over our pay grade on how to mess with these, you know, ontology builder and workflow builder, and yeah, don't know if you guys feel the same way.
Is essentially a knife, a Swiss knife that is so powerful, so full of features, internal products inside the products, that, you know, it can do everything. But I think for that reason, it also scares you. It's like, whoa, it is like, this is so powerful that I don't know where actually to begin with. So that first moment where you try to understand what you're dealing with, and then you start playing around with that. Like those first moments are the most difficult ones. So that's why probably the bootcamps are so successful, because once you have like a Palantir engineer showing you, okay, we know this is complex, but we can help you navigate through this complexity, starting with a small real case. Once you do that, you start developing the confidence that makes you running on your own. But that first step is actually very difficult. Also think this way. If Palantir right now just gave web access, so like the credit card access to Palantir, that would be a mess, because you would have people having the access, and it's like, okay, now what do I do with this? It's like, it's not you buy one thing and you solve exactly that thing, and it's exactly clear how you do that. You need to understand first what is this stuff.
I can give you a very good example. Have you guys ever worked with Monday.com?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. It's basically like a web-based, I don't even know how to say it. It's it's like a tool in your company. and it can do a lot of things. And I'm not saying that it's similar to Palantir. It's like a very, very, like if Palantir is like 200 IQ, this is like a 70 IQ, like helping you do things in the company. And I had to watch hours and hours and hours of video on what it can be used for. And I have two colleagues that are not so technical. And then when they got the tool, they were like, what is this? Like it doesn't do anything. It's not good for anything, you know? And then they were telling me problems of like what they're experiencing. And then I could write like different things and set up different boards on this monday.com. And then once I could do it, they were like, wow, this actually saved like a lot of time. And this was like made it a lot easier to work on a distance with, you know, different engineers. But if I didn't know how to use the tool, it was worthless for the whole company. And I think that Palantir is like that times 100. Like you can be sitting on a gold mine, but if you don't know how to use it, it's and this is why it's, as you said, it would be a flop if they would say sign up with the credit card and here's Foundry for you, because 99% of the people would not be able to do anything with it.
That in turn would create a bad reputation for Palantir, even if the product is actually worth. I actually confirm what you're saying from a feedback I received a time ago, saying, look, in my company, we have Foundry. The problem is that I know to use it. I'm a software engineer. I'm excited to do that. I realize how many cool stuff we can actually do. The problem is that even if all the people have the access, people don't realize they have the access. They don't realize how powerful this is. And essentially, my job is to help them understand what they can do. So in the very first stages, you need active people to essentially convert people to deploy this tool. So that's the painful, but probably is also necessary stuff when you try to deal with something that is not just a PowerPoint.
Yeah, and this is why I'm a bit interested in what is it that they're trying to disrupt with AIP now? Because I feel like they're going towards this, that give us your credit card and we're giving you Foundry. But now that I was on this AIP now, I see that you still need to be the IT guy who goes onto this AIP now, and you still need help somehow from Palantir. So I'm very curious on what exactly they are disrupting in their bootcamp, or what exactly they're trying to handle with AIP now. Maybe the fact that then it's easier to schedule it because people don't have to travel, so a lot more people can be on it. But I'm curious how you guys see this.
Well, I was just gonna say real quick, I don't think they've done a good job still explaining what AIP now is. And they said they would give us more clarity, and they have not. I mean, look, we have to be objective here. The whole Palantir employees made a big deal out of it like 2 weeks ago on Twitter, like AIP now, it's the future. And no one knows what the fuck it really still no one really I think me and Arnie have covered it in a strong enough way for the community to get a grasp of it, but there's not been an official PR explaining what AIP now is. And I don't know if earnings were going to get some clarity, right?
Yeah, I think that they are innovating, right? And they have products that have been hyped very much, but they didn't pan out yet to be anything good. I guess if you remember Apollo, it was going to be like the next $1 billion product, and it was very hyped by Carp when it came out, and we don't hear so much about that. So I think that this AIP now is definitely a new thing that they're trying. They have done it once, but we don't know yet if it's successful. And I think that that's why it's even hard for them to explain, because I think that they see a problem that they're trying to handle, and their idea is the AIP now, but they themselves are testing how to go about it the best.
Well, let's ask ourselves why, or for what reason, like what are the reasons why Palantir engineers are excited for something? Like why they were excited for Apollo, and why they could be excited for AAP now?
Well, I think there's the whole modular version of this thing, right? That's like the part that gets people excited, which I think is cool. But again, there's no credit card sign up,
Well,
right? Like,
I'll tell you this very bad example, but just to give the intuition. You know, when you deal with a very tough problem in Excel, but then suddenly you have the intuition and you find the formula to essentially transform a very complicated workaround into something that is clean, and with a formula you drag and drop and poof, it gives you that same output, and that feels so gratifying. I think that's the feeling they had with Apollo. That is definitely a tough product that brings you a lot of efficiency when you build software and you manage software, because with Apollo, essentially, you ensure that your updates are always safe, and regardless of environment, they can be deployed very quickly. Okay, for an engineer, that efficiency is like, I solve a problem. I think here we see something similar into how they could implement AIP. Now we know that there is a lot of demand for AIP, and they're trying to bootcamp or the more they can. But the bottleneck of bootcamps is you always need someone to organize a bootcamp. And that means there is a people limit and a calendar limit. So as also Dominic said, yes, bootcamp is relatively easier to manage, but once you also deal with executives, other people, it's like that's always a mess between matching the calendars. That's simple, but that's a true problem. So if you have a website, a platform like this AIP now, essentially you can funnel the clients. Like you can have like the very first step where it is the client per se that gets what it wants. So it's not you trying to, hey, come to a bootcamp. You naturally absorb that demand. And then you have the FDE essentially using its time to actually solve directly the problem that this potential client is facing, so that you optimize the time for the FDE. What's truly important is that we need to think of Palantir not as a company that just gives you a service, a product, but as something that everything they do, they learn from it. And since casually we deal with a company helping others deploying AI agents, I think it is fair to think that once they have a lot of inbound they can manage, they will gradually develop internally like an FDE agent, which helps the actual FDE to deal with a lot of these use cases that are coming. Now, previously we mentioned if you pay for the credit card and you have full access to Foundry, you would be scared. That's a mess.
Right.
But if a client knows that, for instance, wow, I love what Lowe's did with the customer service engine, I want to have that as well. Okay, let's go to the website of AIP now. Let's click and you know what? Let's request. And I see directly that. So imagine at the current stage right now, it couldn't be done with a credit card without making a mess, because even if you had the access, like, okay, now what? So you have essentially the forward deployment engineer helping you managing that process, but potentially that could be automated more and more. So I think this is a smart way to actually capture the demand that can't be executed by bootcamps. And by doing this, they don't only leverage the archetypes they've been building these years, but also they learn more actively what people actually want.
Yeah. I also think that, like when you go to the boot camp and you start to, because like before on the bootcamp, every company had to, like, they came with their problem, right? And then you have to build the whole ontology for your company. You have to build this workflow. You have to, and probably that was like 90% of the time. And then, the last 10% of the time was like, okay, how does this solution make like work for your company? And because they have had so many companies on these boot camps, like they saw that, a construction company, like all of them kind of has this structure, like the customer engines, all of them almost look like this, right? And then with the AIP now, I feel like they cut out 90% of the work, because they give you a car and then they're just like, here's the hood. And, oh, you didn't want a V6, you want a V8. Okay, change that. Okay, change this connection, change. And then basically then the attention goes a lot more onto getting the value now. Okay, how, because I think that even if you get it up and running, you still have to optimize it in your company. And that's where the real value is, right? Like when you're like running it and optimizing it and getting the results from it. So I think that's what this archetypes and this AIP now concept helps with. But you still very much need the forward deploy engineers. So I'm not sure how much they're saving on this, and maybe they themselves don't know this yet. Like that's why we don't get info on this.
Well, yeah, real quick, we have a Coach Rep in the chat saying, I'm working on the script for AIP Now Explained. Video should drop soon. So we'll get a little bit more of an understanding of what the heck AIP Now is.
Thank you, Coach Rep, saving us. I would say
he's gonna make us look like idiots after this.
basically.
What Vince says is exactly right, and something that was mentioned also in the webinar. Essentially, the biggest difficulty of implementing Palantir is that first step that we mentioned previously, but that first step is actually building the ontology. Please return on the clip.
Okay.
And I think this guy explained, like, this is the representative of Lowe's who implemented this stuff.
What did you think was...
Do you hear it?
Yep.
Differentiated in building with AIP as you went from, the first iteration, the V1, and then onto production?
See, the biggest call out has to be the speed. So it was like, once we got our data the way we wanted it, once we got that ontology piece built in, we were able to move super fast. So going from a POC to pilot to a national launch, I think it is one of the easiest launch which I have seen, and I think it's just because there's no once the data is available in Palantir, there's no more middleware involved. Infrastructure is all readily available. So Anurag, that's at least what I would say, that and in general, right? Like, you're taking feedback from the business, from pilot, quickly bringing it to the screens directly, getting them super comfortable with that, because we need their buy-in to do a national launch. So I think that was at least my favorite part of the whole thing, that how quickly we were able to get through this.
What did you think was differentiated?
So you see, that ontology layer, like building the ontology, is the big mess. But once you deal with that, you have all the data, all the action layer, like everything is structured well. Then you can start building new stuff relatively easy, because Palantir also have all the tools to help you build stuff very easy. So Kostrap says,
this is a very important point here. Foundry abstracts away all the complexity of deploying application stacks. And I think this goes to this topic, which I think was really important. So Shyam tweeted this today. He said, I'll spill the beans, or Thelian secret, something that is true and most people don't believe to be true. That's kind of Peter Thiel's famous interview question. If you talk with the Series AI labs, they will tell you that only Palantir is doing anything in the enterprise with LLMs. Chat, which is what most people think of LLMs and AI as currently, is the wrong paradigm to harness the power of this stochastic genie. It's a dead end. Value comes from changing how your enterprise operates. This means upgrading the logic that powers your operations, which quite literally has been Foundry for a very long time, right? That requires ontology. Then LLMs can wield the data. They can take all of the internal nuances and intricacies of an organization's data and enterprise's data and make sense of it. This is the secret. As people absorb the cliff's edge with mindless mimetic RAG, or retrieval augmented generation, they will absorb this truth. Or spend 8 hours in a boot camp, hands on keyboard, and get there before the masses. So basically what he's saying is like, you can't just think chat is the basis for how you can 10x your enterprise with AI. That's not going to get your stock to go up. You need to change the very essence of how the enterprise operates from the back end. That comes from understanding what the ontology of your data can look like. And then you harness AI on top of that, something like AIP now, to extract all that data in a meaningful way. And that's where I think Palantir becomes one of the biggest fucking companies in the world. Because it doesn't seem like any other software company is actually thinking about it from that perspective.
How did you like that closing? But if you were to actually express the power, what was the last line of a tweet?
Oh, this one? Oh yeah. Or spend 8 hours in a boot camp. Yeah.
Wasn't it beautiful?
Yeah, I mean, like,
It was like when you see a YouTube video and at the closing is like, wow, now I want to click.
Yeah, there's no company talking like this enterprise SaaS, dude.
I think behind this Twitter there is why Palantir will succeed, because essentially, like the logic that I built is we know it is a fact that in the modern world a company needs to deploy AI, otherwise they would be beaten by companies leveraging AI. We already see that in this last decade. Essentially, the big tech companies are big tech because even if they work in more legacy sectors, by leveraging AI, they have superior decision making. They know what customers want, they know how to optimize resources, and so on. Think of Netflix compared with the traditional media. Netflix is Netflix because they understand what you want and they build products around it, while others are more in the hope and pray mode of I create the content, I pretend you watch it. I hope you watch it.
Right.
And then, so we know companies need AI to succeed, but the key secret that Shyam says, okay, but if you actually want to deploy AI at scale and in a powerful way so that you actually bring results, you need this ontology layer. Why? Because if you don't understand what you are, how your company actually moves, even if you deploy an algo on top of it, that algo doesn't understand the granular detail of your reality. So how can it help you optimize for real? And neither without the ontology. Like, this is something that he didn't write, but I understood is probably the most important key point, is an LLM doesn't have memory.
Yeah. Yep.
So the ontology is actually memory.
Yep.
We talk of Palantir now because we are at the 115th episode of Palantir Weekly. We have this compounded knowledge. So we have memory of all the past discussions, and we are building knowledge on top of it. Think of this way for the ontology. The ontology is that structure, but having that structure, you actually can encapsulate the learning from everything that comes on top of it. While if you don't have this, you have like a processor, you have like the brain, but you need to fill it with new content every day. So that's why you need an ontology to actually unlock pieces into your enterprises, because you want to be in a position where the more users use that, the more your ontology understands at a granular level what you're dealing with, so that you have also that AI recommendation engine that helps you keep unlocking value. So essentially, the closer the ontology is to your reality, the more the algos can actually help you improve that reality.
And, people say, why are we so excited for Palantir? It's because everything Arnie just said in regards to how enterprise software companies actually contextualize an ontology and then are able to extract data from it in a meaningful way apply that to every industry in the world. Apply that to energy, apply that to healthcare, apply that to logistics, apply that to supply chains. I just apply that to everything. All of the millions of companies and all of those different verticals need this ontology-based focused memory associated structure that allows an LLM to be useful in order to 10x their earnings, which the whole thesis around AI in the next 10 years is that every company is going to be going gangbusters if they use it correctly, just like every company that used the internet correctly. Like if you were one of the first advertisers on Google AdWords, I know Gary Vaynerchuk, he's a popular social media guy. He built Wine Library TV, which was his first, one of the first e-commerce websites for wine. And he was buying the word wine on Google AdWords for like 5 cents a click. I mean, could you imagine buying that for 5 cents a click? The amount of traffic he would, because he understood what was going on there, and he blew that business up to like $300 million before he exited. So if companies actually understand AI at scale, and Palantir software is the basis for how they understand it over the next 5 years, they're going to pay Palantir a lot of money because they're going to be making a lot of money. And it's just a question of, if Palantir can execute on this.
Well, do you think it will take, how long do you think it will take before there is understanding that you need an ontology?
I think it's going to happen relatively soon, because I think most organizations are going to realize that AI doesn't matter unless you have an ontology, and the earnings will show it as well.
I think we would be in a big problem if Palantir spoke this much about, you optimize the business, you unlock the value of your company, business like code, blah, 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 blah. And then Palantir was not able to deliver.
Right.
Do you see the point? Is like, if you say, you go around saying, we help you optimize the business, and then you have like a negative 30% free cash flow margin. It's like, are you kidding me?
Right. Okay, last thing I want to talk about real quick is this right here. Let me bring it up. This is so right here. So we have boot camps that are now happening internationally currently. This one, Lord Haregroom posted this. AIP boot camps in Italy. So PwC, one of Palantir's consulting partners, had a boot camp with them on April 10th. And the day after, April 11th, we got a partnership with Open Data Playground, which is a consulting firm for IT services in Italy, that on LinkedIn, they announced that Palantir is going to be sponsoring their hackathons that they have with different engineers. So what are your guys' thoughts on them expanding the boot camps to Italy? We saw them in Zurich. We saw them in London, obviously in the United States, now in Italy as well.
Well, we'll go, Vince.
Yeah, you can go ahead if you want to.
Now, Italy is this weird market where it is true it is not that big in terms of TAM, but it is actually very big compared with the size of the country, because we have a lot of good companies, but the problem of Italy is that almost all companies are legacy companies, and they struggle to deal with, we have this brand, we have this product which is good, but how do we actually enter the new decade? How we stay competitive versus the other peers on the other side of the world, both from China, both from the US, which inevitably have the advantage of scale. Once, Italy is mainly on manufacturing rather than tech, but manufacturing is built on scale. So the more you produce, the more you can optimize, and differently from both China and the US, Italy is not very tech heavy. So we are good at creating products, but not at leveraging tech. So Palantir could be like the solution to essentially 99.9% of the companies. Like in a theoretical world, if Palantir could be deployed into every company in Italy, that could potentially move the GDP of the country, and even at a government level. So seeing things moving here is actually a great sign. And I would say this could be a hint that these partners are actually willing to push the platform, because we see this now, but PwC Italy has been a partner or slash using Palantir for a long time ago. I remember the first active link from Either Square. It was a long time ago, not months, but even years.
Yeah, Vince, go ahead.
No, I mean, obviously, Arnie is Italian, so he has a very deep understanding of the country. I just think that they have always been a US-centric country, and I think that they have done a lot of boot camps, and international has always been a problem for them. And I think that they're testing what they can do on the international, and I'm very happy to see this, and hopefully it works well in Italy, and hopefully it works well in the other countries, and then we might get a reacceleration of also international commercial. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like the boot camps, obviously we were all very bullish on them. If they can do more of these, even if the PwC Italy one-day boot camp doesn't result in any customers, the fact that they got it done and now they can start to plan the next set of boot camps over the coming months, it's important because they're just setting up all these special relationships. They did one in India with Accenture, and I don't know if that got us any new customers, but they got that in the books, and they can start setting up even more and more going forward over the next few months as well.
I would just reiterate something that I remember I shared a couple of weeks ago, but I think is worth considering again. These consultancy companies essentially push something when they know a client wants it. They are not in the game of guessing what the clients want. They know once they know what the clients want, because that is a standard, because that is hyped around the CTOs and stuff. They will try to push that solution. They don't want to take a guess. Like they realize, oh, companies want Snowflake. Let's push Snowflake because that's something they understand they want. They just want that to be implemented. So that's why I consider this a very strong signal that things could be changing also here. And I saw in the comments that there are active links from Poste Italiane, which is like the Italian post service, that is actually a huge company and very close to the government. We know UniCredit is actually one of the first clients, if not the first big clients Palantir had in the banking sector. That is the second most important bank in Italy, which was at a turnaround level. Now they are doing very well. We have Scuderia Ferrari, but we know like Scuderia, like Ferrari is an Italian company, but it's like on its league. So it's not definitely not the average company. And then there was also in the comment CF Plus is actually a very nice bank that I just know from a friend who applied there, but I'm not very I don't know much about them.
Right. No, it makes sense. And the more clients we get across the world, the more this thing has a chance to really scale. And we've gotten, as you said, with UniCredit, that's a big one. And that one is secure in a 5-year extension we got a month ago. So now we just got to try to get more and more and more.
Do you think we will see already something in
Q1?
earnings?
I don't know. I think customer count will go not significantly higher, but higher than it was last quarter. Like last quarter, we added 47. I would say 60 customers is not crazy this quarter. But I also think a lot of them might be pilots and they're not official until, Q4. So,
I received this question that I don't really have an answer to, but it could be helpful to think of it together. How much time, how can we understand how much is the delay between the customer acquired and the revenues? Because essentially, if we see on one chart, please share the screen, like the commercial revenues compared with commercial clients, we see like this huge divergence. Like the revenues, yes, are growing, but essentially they 2x'd. the client count on the commercial side by 8x. So it's
Right.
like, when we see this effect, like when revenue 8x as well.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw this tweet, I answered, but I wanted to say that it's also a function of them going a little bit down market. Like they're after not just giant customers anymore. They are like, it's still not the mom and pop shops, but I think that they are having, I mean, you know, their top 20 customers is like 50 million per year or 60 million per year. And I don't know how many of those customers are flying around. So it might be that we will never get an 8x increase, but we should still get more than 20%. This we can agree on. Way more than 20%.
Like from what you see from the bootcamps, from the AIP conferences, is actually Palantir already going more down market, or is still at the tier 1 level?
Well, I think the goal is we want them to go down market, right? But I don't know if they're there yet. I mean, they've got a lot of work to modularize it to get the average business to use it, and I definitely don't think they're at that level yet.
So in other words,
what I meant is that sorry, go ahead.
Go.
No, I was gonna say that what I meant by down market is that they had the what was the name, like the global 2000 was their like the top 2000 companies was their market, right? And I think they're very like now they're maybe also targeting the global 10,000, you know, so it's not like, yeah, so it's not like they're down to the mom and pop shops, but I don't think that every contract that they're getting is going to be like this 50-60 million. Like I think somebody also posted that the average contract size went from like 8 million to 6 million or something like this, the average customer spend at Palantir.
Well, part is also due because if you have the revenues growing, but growing way less than the denominator, the customer count, you will see like the average declining. So everything, like the real growth, so what we will see here as an evolution really depends on what this composition of clients is. If these 400 clients are relatively small, we will see an effect. But if these clients are actually bigger, in let's say 2-3 years, we could see like a huge explosion. So I think that's why it is important to keep up with the developments in the arena from the bootcamps, APCon, like to have a sense of is Palantir diluting the quality of the commercial customers just to get a lead, just to get this number going up, or is actually preserving a very high bar so that this number really represents a strong potential. Like Hodstrap also mentioned, the enterprise cycles are extremely long, especially for 7 figures, and we need to think that it's like it takes time. So there's a natural time and there's a dynamic where if you spend time into signing a 7-figure contract, you want that customer to potentially be very valuable.
Right. All right. That's it for us this week. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We'll be back next week. We have basically 3 weeks left till earnings. It'll be early May. We don't have a date
already
yet. Yeah, it's back in earnings season. It's going to be exciting, and it'll be fun to cover it again.
What's your gut feeling for the sentiment right now?
I think it depends on how macro is going to be, but if macro, today obviously was a bad day, but if things get better up until May and like Google crushes it, Amazon, like everyone has good earnings, then I think people are going to be more excited. And I think Palantir trying to make a run at $27, $28 is not crazy after Q1. Will we sustain that? I don't know. But if we crush, dude, and we get to 30 and we don't look back, or if we fall to 27 versus falling to 22 like we are right now. But then again, we've gained so much this year already. I feel like that's asking a little too much. We're up 40%. Most stocks don't do that every year. So
it's just the tricky thing is that you know, like I think that Palantir is also exploding behind the scenes, right? So it's like, yes, based on what is known, we have rallied a lot, but there might be new things that have not yet been priced in.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious about their cost structure as well. If they're exploding behind the scenes, they have to be increasing costs to an extent. If they're keeping costs stable while growing, that's amazing, but that might also hit profitability a little bit.
Well, on the career website, there were a lot of positions. Remember?
Yeah.
So a lot of sales positions, essentially US commercial on push.
Right. All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We'll see you next week, and we'll keep going from there. Have a good one, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Ciao.
Bye-bye.